Page 32, Hava Nagila. This piece is pretty straightforward. Hopefully you could just play it. I don't really need to explain anything going on here. I will offer a few minor fingering changes that you can try on your own. And I'll point out a few of the obvious things in the music that you probably have already seen. So let's just take a look here. I'm going to start with the right hand on page 32. Right at the beginning, don't be in a hurry to play this. All right, this kind of feels weird because of the G sharp. The third measure over, watch the fingering. Okay, I didn't do the staccatos, there's staccatos too. Look at the second line, third measure. All right, they're showing this fingering. And that's okay, but there's another one that's kind of fun to do, and that you're starting with fourth finger, but then for the triplets, do a 2, 3, 1. And then cross over on the G sharp. Third finger on the G sharp. Just for kicks and giggles. Third line down in the third measure, when the melody starts, the two half notes, I'm going to finger those with a 2-1 rather than using one on both. There's nothing wrong with using one on both, it's just I like to use different fingers on repeated notes when I can, and I have a habit when a piece or a phrase starts with repeated notes, I generally do a 2-1 most of the time. Now on the last measure of that line, notice the fingering. It's 3 on the first, 2 on the second, got it? They're not doing it so they can do different fingers on repeated notes. They're doing it to set you up for what's coming. But I kind of like it because it accomplishes both. The fingering doesn't work out so well on the last line on page 32 in the right hand. Starting with the half notes. If I do a 1, 3 on each of these, and then I have a 5, 4, and they want a 3 on the next one, well, that doesn't work. Alright, so I'm going to offer an alternative to get around that, and that goes back on the half notes on the second measure. It's a 1, 3 on the first one, and then a 1, 2 on the second. And then reach up for the quarter note and put your third finger on that C, and then a thumb, and then a fourth finger, and now you can do a 1, 3. This way we connect the melody. We want to feel the melody. I like to connect it with the, try and play it legato with the hands if I can. Now, I tried different fingerings and nothing was really working well, but this one allowed me to do it legato. It feels a little weird because you're here on 2 and you got to reach up with 3 and then immediately with a thumb and then immediately with a fourth. It's like, what? But it works, so we might try it out. Over on page 33, second line, last two measures, they're showing 3, 3. Yeah, I prefer 2, 3 on the G sharps. And then the last measure is a 1, 3, 2. Just so I can use different fingers. And then in the third line, first measure, I do a 4, 3. And then the second measure is a 1, 3, 2. And then a 1 on the next measure. So it's a 1, 3, 2, 1. On the fourth measure, I can do a 1, 2 on the 2 Ds. And then I would do a 3, 5 on the half note on the FA. And then a 2, 4 on the last measure. There. Their fingering works too if you prefer that. I've just given you alternatives. Fourth line down, fingering wise, second measure, I would do a 2, 3, then a 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, last measure is a 1, 3, 2, and the last line start it with a 1. Now, last measure, the first note of that measure, however you finger it, put a thumb on the first note. So you can do a 2-3, finger it like they're showing. It's a chromatic passage, all right? We don't finger it like a chromatic passage, but that's what I was saying in the other videos on chromatic passages. The fingering for a chromatic scale is a nice 1-3-1-3. It's handy. It's not the only way to finger the scale, and in music, you're going to finger it however you need to fit the music. And in this case, it's a chromatic scale, but we're not going to finger it 1-3-1-3. If you look at it, it's 2-3, 1-2-3-4. Yeah, I like that. On page 34 in the right hand, second line, the first three notes are okay, 1-3. But I think I would do that E-C with a 2-5. And every time I come back to that E-C, I'm going to finger it with 2-5. All the way across, wherever it is. The thumb doesn't need to do it all. You can help the thumb out a little bit. And the third line down, it's the F-D that I would do it with a 2-5. And the fourth line down, they finally tell you 2-5. Now, fourth line down, third measure, those two E's, I would do a 2-1. Okay. And the last line on page 34, second measure with those E's, I would do a 1-3-2. And now the quarter notes and the fermatas and all that, you can finger it like they've got. The pedal's going to help you connect it all, okay? And I'm going to hold each of those notes 2 counts instead of 1 because I'm playing with a metronome. Then the last measure, you're ending on an A. And the last chord, I would do a 2-5 on that. Because this is a hand position for A minor. This is an A minor. We're not using the E here. The E's in the left hand. But that's the hand position for it. So why not just use it? You don't have to move the hand around. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. Now, at the beginning, in the left hand, they're showing staccato. Third measure, they got LA staccato, left hand staccato. They're telling you just keep the left hand staccato throughout. And that works pretty much. Just keep it all the way through the whole thing. Just keep it staccato. But when you get to the top of page 34, there's pedal. Now this is a contrast. We like contrast in music, and this is it. Now it's smooth. Watch the notes. They're not all the same. And then in the second line, it's staccato again. And keep it staccato all the way down till you get to the second ending. All right. Now on the fourth line down, the first 2 measures is marked with pedal. And that's going to cover up your staccato. You're not going to get staccato. But go ahead and play it staccato. Keep the technique going in the left hand, whether you're sounding staccato or not. Just keep it going. But when you get to the last line, when you get to the whole note, that's not staccato. And those fermata quarter notes, those are not staccato. But the quarter notes and the next to the last measure, you could play those staccato. And the quarter note, the first quarter note and the last measure, the A, they're telling you it's an A, that's staccato. And the last chord could be staccato. I'll come back to that when I talk about the pedal. Speaking of pedal, there is no pedaling on pages 32 and 33, but when you get to page 34, there's a little bit. At the beginning, at the top, the first line, it's just legato pedaling. So I'm going to push the notes down first, then the pedal, and at each measure, right after I play the first notes in the measure, I'll lift the pedal up, put it right back down, like so. You're kind of building up, sort of, to the second line. That type of thing. In the fourth line down, it's the same thing. It's a little legato pedaling for the first 2 measures, so it's here. something to that effect. And the last line, again, is legato pedaling for first 3 measures or so, right? Change it here, change it again here, right after you play the notes. And then as you play the first notes in the next to the last measure, lift it up. Now in that last chord, that's an accented chord, it's the last chord, it's like a last little bang at the end of the piece. And when we do it this way, the pedal just reinforces the bang, right? Without making it harsh, it lets all the overtones fly. So what we do is we push the pedal down with the keys. In this case, push it down with the keys and lift it with the keys 1 measure or 1 beat. So it's here. Alright, it just helps to reinforce the whole thing. There are other techniques, pedaling techniques for this type of thing, just for kicks and giggles. If they had something like a sforzando on it, they wanted a real bang out of it. What we can do in this case with a rest right in front of it is we would push the pedal down right before we play the notes. We release all the dampers before we play the notes, and that gives it a little extra oomph. But they don't want that extra oomph here. It's not a sforzando, it's just an accent. So push the pedal down with the notes, like so. Let's try this out and see what happens. Now we're not performing it, you perform it on your own. There's all kinds of recordings of this you can find. Typically the tempo will accelerate. If you look on page 34, there's a 3rd line, it's accelerando poco a poco, means speed up little by little. So you're just going to gradually start speeding up, and you get the idea. We're playing with a metronome, we're not going to do that. I'm just going to keep the same speed going throughout. So I'm going to play pages 32 and 33, stop, we're going to turn the page, and then we're going to I'll count us in and we'll play page 34. So when we do page 34, when we get down to the bottom there, I'm just going to do the 2nd ending and stop. When you perform it, you want to do the whole thing, all right? And that leads to the question, how do you do the page turn? Because if you're performing it, you can't stop and turn the page and then go on. The beat goes on, you got to keep it going. So what do? Well, in this case, it's fairly easy, because at the bottom of page 33, the last measure, the left hand has 1 count, 1 beat, 1 note, 1 something, and then nothing. So while the right hand is playing these notes, the left hand can turn the page. That makes it much easier. You may have to practice that. We do practice page turns. So if you do that, then you ought to be able to keep going and the beat's fine. Now, when you get down to the bottom of page 34 on the 1st ending and you need to repeat to go back, again, you got to turn the page back. So what do? Well, you have to cheat a little bit here because you just don't have a lot of time. But the left hand's busy with its notes. So I would recommend the right hand, once you play the A, reach up with your right hand right quick and turn the page back, because you've got to keep going. And when you turn the page and you start again at the beginning, both hands are going. So you're going to have to cut the dotted half note a little bit short, so you got more rest, so you got more time to turn the page. Now you repeat back. When you do, you repeat back to the 3rd line down on page 32. You see the reverse repeat sign. The first couple of lines or so are introduction. I mean, you can do this piece and leave those out and you'd be fine. You could just start on the 3rd line, you'd be fine. I want to point out one little gotcha for you. Left hand, page 32 at the bottom, the last line, the next to the last measure. Those notes are not all the same, so watch that. You got here, then here, then you're coming back. So watch that. I pointed out because when I played it, I overlooked it. It happens again on page 33, so just be careful on these notes in the left hand. They may not be what you think they are. So I'll give us 4 counts, so we're going to do this slowly together. And the idea of doing it slowly together is so you can verify your notes and verify your rhythms. Right hand, left hand, foot's on the pedal. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and go, and. it softer, staccato. Stop, turn the page. We'll just do this page down to the bottom. No repeat. Skip the first ending. 1, 2, ready, go.